People say you can lose your home in a nightmare. I never thought mine would begin with a piece of paper. My name's Marcus Reed. I've lived in the same small house on Cedar Hollow for 12 years. It's private property, my mortgage, my address, my memories. My wife and I painted the fence together. Our daughter learned to ride her bike on this street. This place was home. Then one Tuesday morning, I found a letter on the porch. Notice of transfer, property sold at public auction. I laughed at first, a prank maybe, but the paper had an auction number, a clerk's stamp, and an official signature from our Homeowners Association legal department. My stomach dropped. I called the county clerk. She told me the unthinkable. There had been a lien, a foreclosure, and a sale. The buyer, some shell company. The sale date, last week. How was this possible? I'd never missed a payment. I'd never been late. The bank confirmed my mortgage was active. The HOA, no notice was ever delivered to me. My house, my private property, had been sold in an administrative mess. I marched to the HOA office. The president, Elena Pierce, sat behind a mahogany desk like she owned the world. Her voice was calm and legalistic when she said, "There was a clerical error in our records. We thought you were in arrears." "Clerical error," I repeated. "You sold my house without telling me." She shrugged. The process followed board procedure. The lien was entered. Notices were mailed. I handed her certified proof from the bank showing every payment for 12 years. Elena's fingers trembled as she read. "We'll fix this," she said. "We'll reverse the sale." But reversing a sale isn't like deleting an email. The house had a buyer now. Papers were signed. Funds moved. Even if they reversed it, the stress, the legal costs, the damage to my family, who would pay for that? That night I sat at the kitchen table with my daughter's drawings and the auction notice between them. The house felt smaller, like someone had removed a wall without asking. I didn't want revenge for revenge's sake. I wanted my home back, and to make sure this couldn't happen to anyone else. So I did the thing no one expects. I read the bylaws. HOA bylaws are boring until they're the only thing standing between you and losing your roof. Hidden in the text was an interesting clause. The HOA's property management office and its administrative parcel were registered under the HOA Corporation, which meant the association itself owned the office lot. And because the HOA was a non-profit corporation, any transfer of assets required board approval and unanimous consent of all voting members if the transfer affected member properties. I found another gem, a clause that allowed members, homeowners, to petition for a special audit, and if fraud or mismanagement was found, place contested HOA assets into receivership pending court review. The law, read carefully, gave homeowners rights to challenge internal HOA asset transfers. If the HOA could mess up and sell private property, maybe the inverse, buying their administrative property, would force accountability. I formed a plan that was legal, surgical, and painfully public. First, I hired a real estate attorney. Second, I set up an LLC and opened a small account, enough to bid seriously. Third, I quietly contacted frustrated neighbors, people who'd received weird fines, surprise notices, or lost invoices. They'd been too embarrassed or tired to fight. They were ready now. We prepared meticulously. At the next public auction for the HOA's office parcel, recently listed because the HOA claimed they needed to liquidate assets to cover administrative liabilities, I registered my LLC as a bidder. Word spread quietly. One of the owners was at that auction. On the day of the sale, I didn't swagger in. I sat with my lawyer, a folder of bank statements, a laptop showing our mortgage payments, and a heart that wouldn't quit. The bidding started. People threw out numbers. When the HOA's former treasurer tried to bid, I raised my paddle too. We won. It felt surreal walking up with a stack of keys. I could see the office staff through the window, frozen when the clerk announced my LLC as the buyer. Elena went pale. She came out, voice tight. "That property is core to HOA operations," she said. "You can't just—" "You already sold my house," I interrupted. "Your clerical error cost me my peace. This purchase is legal, public, and solves a problem. The HOA can no longer hide records behind closed doors." We didn't move in the next day. We immediately filed for a special audit and a petition to the court. The media smelled it. A local reporter called. A camera followed me on my first walk through the old office. Inside, files were disorganized, invoices misfiled, and worse, some payments unaccounted for. Things that look messy in an office look criminal under a camera light. Neighbors gathered. Maury learned about the auction and how the HOA handled delinquencies. The attorney for my LLC presented the audit petition and evidence to the county. The judge granted an emergency freeze on HOA asset movement until a full audit completed. Under public pressure and legal oversight, the HOA produced letters they claimed they'd mailed to homeowners, stacked in a drawer, unread, stamped with an outgoing date that matched the timeline of the sale. The bank traced funds from the shell company and found they'd been transferred out, fast, and then routed back in a way that made no sense. The audit's findings came back like thunder: administrative negligence, failure to properly notify homeowners, and misapplication of lien procedures. The court ordered the sale reversed. The shell company transferred title back. The county clerk rescinded the auction entry. My house, my private property, was returned to me, with court orders declaring the HOA's sale void and directing reforms. But that was only part of it. Because I now own the HOA office parcel, the association couldn't operate in the shadows. I invited a neutral receiver and, with the neighbors, installed an oversight committee. We changed the bylaws to require electronic confirmation of notices, triple-checked mailing procedures, and instituted a transparent online ledger of every HOA transaction. The office was no longer a gatekeeper, it became a community center. Elena resigned quietly. The treasurer faced charges for negligent record-keeping. The shell company that bought my house, traced and rebuked for predatory practices. The judge ordered restitution for affected homeowners and a public apology on the HOA bulletin that used to scare residents into silence. A month later, my daughter asked if we could plant a tree outside the office parcel so no one else can make a mistake like that. We planted it together. People came by to hang handmade "Welcome Home" signs on my porch. I still have the auction notice pinned in my garage, tacked next to family photos. A reminder of how close we came to losing everything and how we took our private property back. If you ask me what I learned, it's simple. Never assume the rules protect you, read them. When institutions fail, people can step in, but you have to be smart, calm, and willing to act. I didn't burn the HOA down. I bought their office, opened their books, and gave the neighborhood the power it deserved. Private property isn't just a deed, it's a responsibility to guard it. And sometimes, guarding it means using the rules they thought would keep you quiet. Fade out, soft piano. Camera pulls away from Marcus's home, front porch light on, family bike propped against the fence, then pans to the office across the street with a small community garden bursting in front of it.